Good afternoon. It's Cathy from I'm Enough, and once again I'm very fortunate to be accompanied by Barry Auchetl, who is with us today. I always introduce you as the creator of the conversation game. I introduce you as an international speaker because I do know that you speak around the world. You have been a radio host. You run many groups with people where you change mindset. Barry, I'm going to hand it over to you with our subject today, which is living outside the box. And I'd be very interested to see your take on that.
Look, thanks, Cathy. Look, what I am is a life vision mentor. So I actually help people to live outside the box. And that's what I sort of specialise in through a whole range of different areas. And one of them, by the way, is literally through this box, this conversations game that you talked about. Mm-hmm. And this game that I created is outside the box because it's not a normal board game. So what I actually did is I literally went to bed one night and said, what am I meant to do with my life? I was a bit lost. And I actually literally dreamt this board game. It's quite remarkable, really. And I put it together, and over about a 5-year period, I had people come up and support me and went to game companies, and they were all saying to me, oh, this is not like, this is not fun. Like this doesn't make me laugh. And I said, well, it's not meant to, it's meant to develop something a bit deeper and develop deeper conversations between each other and create openness and unity and connection. And they just didn't get it. They just went, oh, yeah, we don't get that. Like, how's that a game? And I said, well, it's outside the box. That was literally the words that I said. And I said, this is something that's really a bit different. And since then, the game has literally gone around the world. And what I could have done is I could have easily just said, oh, I have to conform and make it like everything else, and water it down and not have any real depth to it. And it would have lost that real unique flavour that the game has. And so I learned from that outside the box experience that it isn't about conforming. It's not about being the same as everyone else. In actual fact, it's your uniqueness that makes life really important and really far more interesting. I don't want everyone to be the same as me. I think life would be really boring if everyone was exactly the same as me. Absolutely. Acceptance of different opinions is really important, but owning your own difference is also equally important.
And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I think that their take on it was awesome. She referred to it as one of the ladies we're going to interview, and she referred to it as when we were created, it was the flour and the milk and the sugar, and it all went into the batch of muffins that came out. And there were 12 muffins, but when you put the muffins into the oven and then you brought the muffins out, some of the muffins went right, some were left, some were rounded, and some were sunk in the middle. So, it doesn't matter. Each one of those muffins tastes the same and they're perfect because they're just the way they're meant to be. So even though some look like they're out the box, they're still beautiful.
Yeah, and it's that uniqueness that I think, I remember going to America once and I wanted an apple, and I went into one of the local supermarkets and there was genetically modified apples, and there were 6 in a row, and they all looked exactly the same colour, the same slightly different tinge on each one. And it was like 6 apples exactly the same in a row. And I actually chose, it was the first time I chose not to buy an apple because it just didn't look right. There's something about the fact that they're all exactly the same didn't look right to me.
And so if we take this, living outside the box into a digital world that our young people are exposed to, how would you, what approach would you have to that uniqueness in that environment where maybe they're being teased or maybe they're being confronted for that uniqueness?
Yep. I think the biggest thing for me is about deciding for themselves how much of the digital world they want to be in and for what reason. So, we don't have to be on this just because everyone else is, or we don't have to comment on something just because everyone else is. Being outside the box is about making up your own mind. What is it that you want to do? And the number one statement I want to get across for this is, does this feel right for me? You know, if I'm going to do something, does this feel right for me? If I'm going to make a comment, does it feel right that I make a comment? Or am I just doing it to fit in with everyone else? And yeah, it's okay to want to be part of a group. That's a natural thing of who we are. As long as underneath it that we're not going to sell out, if you like, a little bit of who we are just to conform.
Wow, and I think, wow, that's
Go ahead.
powerful, because, you know, just listening to, again, some of the children and the teens and the young adults that have spoken to me, and underneath some of that, well, I need to go out today, or I need to do this, it's all that, exactly, the fear of missing out, the fear of not conforming, the fear of not being wanted, rather than standing for who you are, living outside the box and doing exactly what you need to do at that very point in time.
Yeah. And what I found is when we can be really authentic, because the word is about being authentic with that, that's when we actually somehow attract real people into our lives that actually support us. And it's not just going through a process where we feel like we've got to pretend to be someone who we're not really. And one of the advantages of social media is that there is a lot of people out there with a whole lot of different interests. So we can actually even tap into people who have a similar interest to what I've got. You know, I came from a small school and we had to play football every winter and cricket every summer. And I wasn't a footballer or a cricketer and was told, therefore, I couldn't play sport. Years later, I actually ended up doing rowing and won state titles doing rowing and even did some pre-Olympic selection rowing. And it shifted my mindset that, well, actually, I can do good at sport. I just can't do cricket or football. It was just those two. And the digital age is a little bit the same. Find what fits for you. And in terms of stepping out the box, the other thing I just want to mention is that a lot of people go into digital conversations because they're a little bit lost. And I'm always suggesting to people to get really clear about who you are before you go into it. Like, you're not going to find your answers within the digital media. And to write down, who am I? You know, that's simple. Write down, who am I? And start writing down points about who you are. And there may even be a few points that you say, who do I want to be? And start putting some actions towards that. I want to be more caring to my friends. Well, okay, I'm going to start taking some actions towards that.
And I think the one that often I hear is, I'm proud of who I am and I'm proud of my heritage, because it was just this week again, I'm exposed to this because of what I'm doing, a young person feeling very threatened because she's an immigrant. She doesn't sound the same, she doesn't look the same, she doesn't feel the same, and so she feels that she's being picked on for being so different, to the point where she's questioning whether her life is worthwhile.
Yeah. It's such a sad thing where they're actually bringing in such diversity. The reality is they're bringing unique flavours into what's going on and giving us more choices and more potential for growth, rather than the same old, same old. And so I encourage people to look for differences, like look for people who maybe look different to you, look for people that may speak a little bit different. And having had the wonderful opportunity, I did 6 months traveling around the world. And if you take out people's religious beliefs and take out their politics, because people often have differences and got really caught up in those two areas, everyone I met was almost coming from a place of just wanting to be really nice and really look after their family and get on with each other. And so I found that people, regardless of what they look like, what they say, etc., we are actually more alike than disalike. And so, as well as looking for the individual differences, in people, recognizing that we're all pretty similar anyway.
Absolutely. And perhaps, Barry, if we end off our session with 3 things that a young person can take away in terms of living outside the box, what can they embrace that you believe will make a huge change in their outlook and their approach?
Okay, look, the number one thing has to be yourself. Be who you really are. That is the first thing. And that is what is attractive to other people as well. Because you know yourself when you meet people and they're not being themselves, you get a sense of they're not being really real anyway. So the first one is to be yourself. The second one is to accept everyone. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It doesn't mean you have to do them, accept everyone for who they are. And the third one is in any action that you do, that simple question is, does this feel right for me? And then be okay with yourself to say no.
It's wonderful. 3 very valuable life tips, Barry. And once again, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for your valuable time. I do appreciate it, and I hope that this podcast makes a change in even one person's life, because then we've achieved our goal. Thanks a lot, Barry.
Great, thank you, and continue to think outside the box too, Cathy.
Thanks, Barry.